Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
What up, what up, what up? Hey, this has just been one crazy weekend filled with League of Legends, and there's a little bit more to go. So after what was I don't even know if there's words to describe the stream last night, what I can remember of it, what happened. I'm sure we're going to do that again. It was a good time. Thanks for everybody that watched. Today is a little more low key. We're going to go over just kind of the LCK, LPL 5-game slate. We're going to talk about, some of the different DFS options, take a look at some of the bets. I know we may have talked about it a little bit yesterday, but we'll go back over it again and then just kind of see where we land with all of this. Just not going to have content the next 2 days, not going to cover 2 gamers. Otherwise, I'd be doing this 7 days a week, which is fun. It's nice. You can always find me in the esports department Discord, on Twitter, a variety of other different places if you have questions and you want to talk through the 2 gamers. But I'm just not going to do videos for them. I will have projections if anybody wants them. Go ahead and hit me up. I might even just actually do some articles on those and just kind of just a overview of the teams, what I think, some of the breakdowns that I do here. That would be over at drroto.com if that's the route that we decide to take. But anyway, nevertheless, let's kind of get into this. Before, I do want to take a victory lap on CLG. I told you guys they're a lot better than we thought, but EG just looks absolutely fantastic right now. So kind of sad that they weren't able to 2-0, but getting that win over Immortals kind of at least justifies that they're not the absolute worst team in the LCS right now after 1 game. Anyway, so let's take a look as we typically do. Let's add this, and this is not big enough. It doesn't appear. Oh, you know what? Let's do that. Still not big enough. Oh, it's too big. But let's go here. Let's start kind of just with these 2 games. So we've got a 5-game slate once again, just like the last couple of days. One of the first games that is going to be kicking off is going to be OMG and IG over in the LPL. I feel like OMG should be the favorite here. I don't think that there's a tremendous gap between these 2 teams, but just the way that we've seen OMG play thus far, granted, take it with some, a grain of salt that they've played some really bad teams. They've looked really good. So at least they have done what they're supposed to do. I mean, good teams are going to look good against bad teams. Good teams hopefully will look good against good teams, but we've only seen them against bad teams. They've done what they were supposed to. They didn't stumble. They didn't have any challenges. So I feel pretty good about OMG over IG. This IG team, I think has some talent and some potential, but it is still kind of like that fringe amateur-ish type of team. We're getting them OMG at a -125. Invictus is at -106. I mean, I don't necessarily think that there's a ton of value on either of these. When we look at kind of the game totals, we do see actually, a little bit of a higher total at 27.5. I'm kind of inclined to take the over on that and then maybe even take the kill spread at -3.5. I just don't see a lot of situations where teams win and they don't win by, 4 or 5 kills, especially because you get those last 5 there at the fountain. So typically, if the team's going to come out and fight, and this IG team does come out and fight. So far, looking at the stats for these teams, let's take a look at some of the stats we're looking at. So the goal differential per minute, 305. OMG is one of the highest. Again, not playing some high quality, but what we do see here is that Invictus is at 373 themselves. So that's surprising to me. That's not necessarily something that I expected. Both of these teams too have played relatively short games. I guess I'm going to need to kind of refresh my memory here on who IG has played so far this year. I'm drawing a blank. I feel like they haven't played some top level competition yet, and let's find out. So where's IG? IG played, what was it, like LNG or something, or not LNG, but LGD. They played TT. It's all they just play TT. So yeah, I mean, that's to be expected, I guess. we look at the stats, so they're pretty similar in that regard that they both play TT. Anybody is Legend was the other team that OMG played. And, the minus 21, there are teams that are doing much worse, but this is kind of where we would expect them to be. So there's that. In terms of first blood with both of these teams, nothing to see here. 50%, first tower, pretty similar. I don't want to put too much weight into Invictus because they played TT, and now I'm remembering those games, and they weren't anything impressive from TT. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm there. I think that OMG is kind of the play. If you do want to bet that at minus 125, I don't think you're getting a ton of value, but if you want to have a little action, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Hanwha Life Esports minus 145 versus Fredit Brion. I didn't think Fredit Brion looked that bad the other night. They put up a huge struggle or a huge fight with T1. We thought T1 was going to kind of breeze through that. I had projected that to be kind of a low-scoring affair, but Brion came to play. They were a little bit feisty. I kind of like that. I do think that there's some value here. You could bet Brion. You don't want to bet them on the spread, but I think, just on the money line plus 109 is okay. I do think that they have a very good shot of winning this game. They project okay. It's not my favorite spot, but I think a 4-man bro stack or a 3-man small bro stack is okay. The only concern that I have with Brion right now, and again, small sample size, they weren't able to get first blood in any of the 3 games that they've played so far. And, that is part of the small stack, the team slot. And I don't have the utmost confidence that they can go ahead and sweep this game. We have a 23.5 total. I think it's a little bit low. I think both of these teams have shown that maybe they're not exactly what they were previously. Brion was a more conservative team, but again, it's just, it's a small sample. 23.5 is a small number. I might take a couple stabs at this right here, just with like a quarter unit, half unit type of situation. Next game, moving in, we've got Team WE versus Victory 5. I think Victory 5 wins this game. I don't think that they have any problems doing so. And I think that, I'm probably going to bet the money line. I'm probably going to bet the spread minus 1.5. I think Victory 5 has an incredible team, some great talent. WE was feisty against Weibo Gaming in the first game, but I thought that was more of a byproduct of several advantages that Team WE was able to get early around, like I think it was the first Dragon, possibly even the Herald. I feel like Angel was kind of out of position. He wasn't able to get to those fights, and these teams knew that, and they took advantage of it. They didn't end up winning that game, and then they got crushed the second time. So that's definitely something that, I want to monitor there. Let's take a look at some of these bets. Great to hear it. I'm glad we doubled your money. Let's try and do it again. Any day that we're in the positive is good. You can't win every day unless you're Nathan, but you can try, right? So taking a look at this at 26.5, I don't know. I don't think I really want to touch that number. I do think Victory 5 minus 5.5 is an interesting one. When it comes down to it, I don't see these games being ultra competitive. The only concern or thing that would give me pause is that Victory 5 is only playing together for the first time. This Team WE, they had their games together. Some of these guys have been in the system, so maybe they're familiar with each other. But I still find these games to be like, I think they're going to be like 15, 16, 17, 18 kills to like 5 to 7, somewhere in that range. So I feel pretty good about that 5.5. I also think like you can grab these first bloods at minus 125. First Inhibitor is a little bit rough. First Dragon's a little bit rough too. But I do think that first blood, something that you can attack. I think we can go ahead and bet the spread on these and then bet Victory 5 on the money line. You're probably not necessarily going to see some of these numbers be any better for Victory 5 if they're as good as we think that they're going to be. And they have some significant talent there. So we've got that. Let's go back, and here's the game that's one of the most, it's not the most interesting. I mean, we have some bangers. These first 2 games, not super exciting. OMG is always a fun game to watch. Team WE Victory 5, we get to see Rookie and his new team and everything that goes there. Damwon versus Gen G. Getting this early is exciting, especially with the With the implications and how big of a favorite both of these teams are to win the LCK. Nah, I think it's just going to be a solo one today. Nothing crazy, just me. Um, so I have this game could go one of two different ways for me. This game, I think the talent on both sides of this, is going to cancel each other out. We're going to get some close games. We're going to get some close games that go into the ultra late game. We've seen a lot of these games, across all the different leagues, get into elder fights, get souls, and just we've seen most games in the leagues run to about 35 minutes on an average, which, last season it was closer to 30 in most of the major regions. So pretty significant difference. There's still not a ton of data to normalize that. But if that continues, I think that you're going to see that here. Now, that could lend to a very high scoring game. I mean, we're talking like 20-16, 25-15. And I went back and I looked at this Damwon team, albeit a much different Damwon team than what we're going to see tonight. But when they played in the playoffs against T1, HLE, any of these in spring, in summer, they did put up a lot of kills. And so, we know that they have the capacity to do that. I think that the concern and the worry that you have to have is that these teams play to kind of a stalemate. And, it's like a 11-9 going into an elder fight. That's a real possibility. But I think I'm going to bank on it not being the case. And we'll talk a little bit why in DFS that's going to be a good thing. I mean, I'm going to slam these overs at 23.5. I don't want to touch the spreads. I think that's pretty close. But yeah, so, I think you pick a side here. You pick a side, whether it's Gen G or Damwon, and you slam that side. I think I'm going to go with Gen G. I think that's where I feel I'm going to put my lineups. But hey, if you have a different read on it, I think this is a complete toss-up, and the odds would indicate that. LCK, LPA easier to predict than LCS and LEC due to the series setup. Yeah, I mean, sure, 100%. So in a best of one, there's a lot more that can happen. It's no different than any of the major sports. When you go into a best of 3 series, it reduces some of the variance of a 1-game sample. You go to a best of 5, it reduces it even more. You go to a best of 7. I mean, the more games you play, the more often the favorite is going to come out ahead. I mean, if somebody's favored to win, it's 60% of the time, 6 out of 10, and that's what some of these bigger favorites are. Like a Victory 5 WE, Victory 5 I think is implied to win at -220. They're implied to win that like 65-70% of the time. But that still means that like 4 times out of 10 Team WE wins. Now that's a series odds, but if taking that into a 3-game series or a 1-game series, 4 out of 10, it still happens a lot. They even kind of said something like that on the LCS broadcast, referring to something completely different. But a 55-45 is still an advantage to the 55, but it's basically a coin flip. The 45 happens a lot in a smaller vacuum. So yes, they are. And what you'll see too is the LPL and LCK as time goes on. You're not going to see a lot of these big dogs make upsets in series. Right now, people are trying to figure things out, trying to get an idea of who's really good, who's not. You don't have the sample size, the data. Later in the season, you're not going to see a lot of like minus or plus 200 plus 200 dogs or larger winning in the LPL specifically. So that's just something to keep in mind. Yeah, I mean, look, sticking to the LCK and LPL, you're going to get bigger contests. I will tell you that if you're putting in a lot of lineups, though, even 10, 15, whatever the case is in LCS or LEC, you just really kind of need to embrace the variance and, play a team that, hey, they might win 20% of the time, but you really don't think that they are. And, if they do, it's a good situation. I didn't really think that Dignitas was going to be a viable play. I didn't think that team's very good, but, I thought that they could beat IMT, and I wouldn't have been surprised if they beat Team Liquid. So I had some Dignitas lineups, and they did very well with EG. Some of my best days in LCS have always been when I put 2 dogs together. It just happens. We've seen slates where all 5 underdogs win. So it's not crazy to do that. And even in the LEC, it's like that. I mean, you look at SK today, the gap between good teams and below average teams is not that much. There's maybe 1 or 2 teams that just are leaps and bounds above everybody else, but not necessarily right now at this point in the season. And we don't even know who those teams are. We thought it was going to be Mad Lions, and we thought SK was going to be bad. Not everybody. Some people think that they'll finish sixth. I don't, but hey, they picked off a good win today against a Mad Lions team. Then who's the best team in the LEC right now? Is it Rogue? Is it Fnatic? I don't know. But I think both of those teams looked beatable as well. Going into this last game, we have Weibo versus BLG. Now, Weibo, we've seen play. We saw him struggle with WE in one game. We saw him handle them pretty easily in the next. BLG has not played together. You've got Doggo, you've got Fofo, you've got a star-studded team here, especially with Breathe in the top lane. It's interesting to see how this one plays out. I don't know if this is going to be super bloody, and I don't know how well BLG is going to mesh. We have seen some of these teams kind of struggle to find some of their chemistry when they're playing initially. Victory 5 gets a really nice warm-up game against Team WE to kind of christen them into the league, whereas BLG, these guys are going to have to go against Weibo Gaming, who, while I don't think that they're an absolute top tier, they're a fringe playoff team, if not a little bit better. The core of that finals run 2 years ago is still there. So this team is good. And we'll talk about it. So, what's up, Iron Berserker? Yeah, I know you. That's where you want to go. Hey, I don't hate that at all. I don't hate it at all. But let's take a look at a couple things here. When it comes to some of these games, so let's go with this one by one, like we do, every single time. When we go, Shanji versus Nene, I think Shanji has the advantage there. These teams are pretty evenly priced. You can see that Shanji's projections are just popping. I mean, they've done nothing but play against bad teams. These numbers are going to pop as a result. A lot of the data is being pulled from, these small sample sizes. So just take it with a grain of salt. But I do think he has the advantage here in the top. I do think Zune is a little bit better than Akai, but Akai has been a massive kill participation guy. He's been involved setting up his team, doing a real good job of working with Shanji, doing a real good job of working with Cream. I do like playing Akai in a lot of my lineups. The problem is he doesn't get a ton of kills, and so putting him as a captain, you are relying on him getting involved and playing something like a Jarvan, playing something like a Zin, or what else do they play? They play Zin, Jarvan, and Lee Sin. So I guess you don't really have to worry about that. But I think a slight edge here to IG, and if they're going to win, it's going to be on the back of Zune. If IG is going to lose, it's going to be because Zune feeds. It's just usually the way that it goes. In the mid lane, I think Cream has the huge advantage here. I think Abel has a slight advantage. Both of these guys look like they project very well. And from a support, I guess it's a pretty even one as well. So I do think that OMG has a advantage in the top lane. I think they have an advantage in the mid lane, and then a slight disadvantage in the jungle, and just kind of even everywhere else. And so, we've talked about it in the Discord. I don't mind playing IG. I don't think it's a bad play at all. I do think that OMG is going to be kind of owned. And IG usually plays well in the situations where they're dogs. You just don't want to play IG as a favorite. So let's take a look at the next game. HLE and Fredit Brion. This is another game like we talked about. I can see this going both ways. If HLE swept this and Sam D continued to mock me after my comments about him the other day, then hey, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think Brion's going to come out ahead in this game. I think that they do give you some significant salary relief if you want to play some of these more expensive teams, and we'll talk about one of those teams that's kind of expensive. But yeah, I think you can play anything here. When we're talking about the top lane, I think that they're both kind of not great. Morgan, I think, gives you a little bit of an advantage. On Fleek and Umpty, I like Umpty more than On Fleek. But when it comes to Karras and Lava, Karras played really well the other day. Kind of impressed me. This was a guy that, was a highly touted prospect, and he came and he delivered. I think Henna's better than Sam D. And, yeah, man, I think Vista's a little bit better than Delight. But, man, I don't know how you go through every one of those lanes. I don't think that there's a significant advantage, but I do think Bro has advantages. And if you just look at the salary differences here, the way that they're priced on DraftKings is not in line with their odds on Bovada or any of the books. HLE is one of the most expensive teams. They're difficult to fit. Let's get into the more expensive one than them, which is going to be Victory 5. Victory 5 is one of the more expensive teams. Like Invincible at 7,000 versus Bubu. I think Bubu's a little bit better than Invincible. I'm not a big fan of him, and I think at 7,000, it's a crazy price to play. You got Karsa here versus View. This Karsa is obviously the advantage, but again, a big price for a guy that doesn't typically score a ton through killing. Again, he's a lot like a Kai in the sense that he's going to be somebody that's going to get a lot of assists and kind of facilitate his lanes. And I think that that's going to be advantageous to this guy, Rookie, who I give Rookie the advantage here. But Shanks has been playing out of his mind. There was a switch that Shanks flipped somewhere towards the end of the last split and into the kind of the relegation playoffs and all of those games. He's just been fantastic. He's been scoring well. If they're going to win, it's going to be through Shanks. Now, if they're going to win and he has to do that through Rookie, that makes it a little bit more difficult. Again, I think V5 wins this 2-0. I'm not putting a lot of weight into that. In the larger GPPs, I think going ahead and playing some WE would be kind of interesting. But I do think that with the higher price for V5, we may see some reduced ownership. Faotic versus Stay. Faotic is a highly touted guy. Is played in the top esports, was replaced by Jackie Love, but was always a great fantasy scorer when he was able to play and win. So, this isn't reflected right here because he just doesn't have any games recently that we can pull data. So they just has kind of stock standard data in that game. And then PP God, Kadea, I think it's pretty equal. Some people are a little bit higher on PP God than me. I think he's okay. I don't think he's bad, but again, B5 wins that game. Weebo versus BLG. Let's talk about this one. I think Breathe and the Shy. This is a good matchup right here. Shy played really, really well. Breathe was the best top laner in the world last year. This is a matchup that I'm going to run as an advantage to Breathe. When we look at the jungle, I think SFM has a little bit of an advantage here as he's playing and not trolling with his build. Wee is a good jungler. There's not that big of a difference. Fofo versus Angel. I give the advantage here to Fofo, but Fofo is not necessarily always a guy that's going to score a ton of points, but he has a ton of impact coming out of that RA team last year that, again, was not a fantasy target for us. They didn't put up a ton of points, but they did win games. And a lot of that was through Fofo carry. The guy has some crazy mechanics, has some highlight reel plays. It seems like at least once a series. Angel's the same thing, but I think you can take Angel out of his comfort zone, and he's a lot like Zika. I think all three of these guys really kind of profile very similar, that they like playing assassin mid laners, and you just don't see that in the meta. If one of these guys gets Vex, that's kind of where I'm looking, kind of Vex LeBlanc, maybe even a Vex versus LeBlanc kind of type of thing. Weibo does kind of play slow. They can, man. They had a lot of games last year, and I can pull up some of this data. Let's see, LPL, where are they? So, you can see it here, the data that they have, 15, 19, but they would put up a 26 or 25, so they had the capacity to do that. But I guess the bigger concern is just, this is a small sample again, but you can see these games right here, they don't die a lot when they lose. They're not a team that's going to come out and fight and contest. They're not a team that just continually feeds. They're going to try and find ways back into the game. If you look at this game, for an example, against WE, where they went down. Where is it? We're in 22. Yeah, okay, cool. This game in particular right here, they went down, they gave up 18 kills, and I thought that was a lot, but that number could have been a lot higher. They did end up winning that game, but they just weren't force-feeding that. So that's the concern that I have if I'm playing a team like BLG. I don't know. That's the concern. I don't know if Weibo Gaming is going to score a ton of points. I don't know if they're going to give up a lot of points. I think this game may be over-owned just because people want to play it. Hong Fong did great. Labs doesn't have Doggo in here, so you can't see him, but Hong Fong definitely, I'm going to give him the nod over Doggo. Doggo looked great in Worlds or at MSI. Didn't look so great at Worlds. Had a mumuch better team around him at MSI than he did at Worlds. So I don't know how much stock we can put in that tiny sample, but we'll find out. Like, it's going to be trial by fire. He's going to play with Hong Fong, and there's no better way to kind of really get a feel for where his skill is. Based on his mechanics and the way that he's played, I think Doggo is going to be just fine. But this game, this game's a lot like the next game that we're going to talk about, which is that Damwon Gen G. In the sense that these teams could clam up and then just play for the super late game. Yeah, for sure. Sure, you can add some. You could add. I mean, yeah, Breeze's the guy that can kill him for sure. So, yes, better to watch because they're in studio. I agree with that, and they even have fans sometimes, so that's always exciting. Last game of the day, Damwon Gen G. So, this could be a situation you're sitting pretty. You've got your OMG, Frederick Brion stacks, or whatever the case is, and then this series just absolutely erupts. When we look at this in the top lane, Hoya versus Doran, I think it's a pretty similar pairing. Canyon versus Peanut. Canyon's the better jungler, but it's not this huge gap. So right now we've got the advantage to Damwon. Obviously, I think Showmaker's better than Chovy. So Damwon has a little bit more of an advantage. I think Ruler's better than Decadon. I think that this bottom lane with Lee Hans and Ruler is one that's going to be pretty dominant. But this is just a net zero for me. Like this again, this is just an even series. This is going to be a good one to watch. It might not be exciting. It might be exciting. I don't know, but it's going to be a high quality. It's going to be tense either way. So I definitely want some exposure here. I want to bet on it. I want to have something on the line when I'm watching it. It's just more exciting that way. So, yeah, look, there's always a jungle gap when Canyon's involved. The dude is an absolute monster, has great game sense. When he's playing against most junglers, it kind of looks like the way that like Malrong was playing, and it makes sense. I mean, that's where Malrong came from against some of these LEC kind of guys. So let's take a look at this. When we have all of the teams together here and we look at the pricing, V5, the most expensive, V5's the most expensive, V5's the most expensive all the way through. Then it's HLE and BLG for the most part. When we put these here, some question the top lane. Which top lane? What are you talking about? Are you talking about who's playing, like whether it's Birdall or Hoya? And that's true. I just don't think that it necessarily changes the projection per se or the outlook on the teams for me. So, all right, let's run a couple of these. If you have any, requests, let me know and we can try it. So if we're going to run, I know somebody said Weibo and Victory 5 earlier. I think it was Iron. I mean, you can put some good lineups together there. Okay, apparently it's broken. You can't do this. This is not available. So we'll take that out, but you can get some, 4-3s. Okay. Can you do it with BLG? Now, keep in mind, Doggo's not in here, but it doesn't look like that you can. You can't put Victory 5 and BLG together. I don't think you can put Victory 5 with HLE. Yeah, I mean, it could be Birdall. I just don't think that it doesn't change my opinion of the way that game is played. It doesn't change my opinion of the projections. It doesn't, Hoya, Birdall, one is not significantly better than the other. It's just like On Fleek and Willer. I don't think that they really change from player to player. But okay, so here, HLE Victory 5, you can get some, I don't know why it's doing this, but it does appear, I don't know if you can get that. What's the team slot for Victory 5 at? 5,800. No, I don't know if you can actually get the, crazy. Okay, we'll have to figure out why the optimizer is doing that, but it doesn't look like you can get a carry with those two. But with OMG and HLE, I think that you can. Yeah. Man, let's take a look at something. players. Let's get this, take this off. I don't understand. Shouldn't need to set this, but whatever. Give me a second. All right, that fixed it. And yeah, I mean, you can get a cream captain here. You can get a Karras captain. You can do a lot of different things with these two teams. Let me go back to these two. Let's throw it into 20. Generate it. Yeah, no, you can't really do much. You're playing a top captain. But let's see. IG Victory 5 works fine. Oh, but that was those 3 teams. My bad. But yeah, you can do this. I'm sure you can do this. You can do this. I mean, look, it looks like the pricing is super loose, and you can do just about anything that you want. The exception going to be Victory 5 and BLG. The BLG and HLE, I don't think that you can do, or Victory 5 and HLE. Those are the 3 teams that you can't really stack up together with a carry. Looks like you can do some BLG, like some 3-3 with HLE. And then can you do Dam 1 and Victory 5? That might be the only other one that you can't do. I'm using my projections. Labs doesn't have a default. They don't do the projections anymore. Okay, so I guess you can't do Dam 1 in this, but you can do Gen G, right? Yeah. All right, so when we're talking about best teams to stack, I know that this was a question that came into the chat right here. I think for most people, it's going to be OMG IG. I think you can take a stab here. I'm going to go out on the limb and say the next best game is Damwon Gen G, and then followed probably by Weibo BLG. Has a little bit of a higher ceiling than HLE Brion, but I think that your highest scoring games are going to be these 3. I think I'm crossing this one off. Victory 5 is a little bit too expensive. I think that they crush WE. I think you can play their team slot as a one-off. But aside from that, I don't really want them. Maybe I'll play them as a small stack, but Invincible's too expensive at 7K. This team hasn't played together. WE, I mean, they rolled over when Weibo played them last time. And so I don't have this projected as a super high kill game. I don't know what to make of this BLG Weibo game. I am concerned that Weibo does not give up a ton of kills if they lose. I'm concerned that they don't get enough kills if they win. I think that this OMG IG, both of these teams give up kills when they lose. They get kills when they win. Like, it's a perfect situation. They're going to be pretty chalky. If you're going to play OMG, and I think that they will be the most popular stack, I think you can play them with something like a Fredit Brion or with a Gen G. I think both of those teams will be a little bit lower owned, or maybe even a Damwon. I don't know. I don't know how people are going to be looking at this Damwon Gen G situation. I tend to think that Gen G is just every bit as good as Damwon, and I'm fine with playing them. But I think Brion is a sneaky stack, and I think HLE, is a sneaky stack. I think people are going to be playing a lot of LPL. So just getting in any of these LCK teams is going to make it a little bit different. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know what I'm going to run in cash. I don't know if I'm going to play cash. But if I was playing cash, this is probably what I'd play. Probably play Victory 5 OMG in cash, something like that. That looks great. Great lineup. Fantastic, actually. That's what I'd run. So, does anybody else have any other questions, comments, concerns? We ran through it all. Again, we're going to take a break the next 2 days. We're not going to have any content on the 2 gamers. I'll try and get some written content out. Projections, you can find them at the Top Esports, or not Top Esports, the Esports Department Discord. Just message me. I'll shoot you a copy of the CSV or a picture of them, or hit me up on Twitter. I just can't send it via Twitter, so I'll need your email or something like that. And then, you can find any of my written content, if it's going to be, or any of these podcasts, up on my YouTube channel, up on drroto.com. Written content is there. But beyond that, I will see you guys in 2 days when the 4 gamers return. Talk to you later.